Welcome back to State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin. Now, this is the scandal that still shames our nation and the people who claim to speak on our behalf. I am, of course, talking about the grooming gang scandal, the organised sexual exploitation and rape of young, white British girls and women by mainly Pakistani Muslim gangs. Some people call it the grooming gang scandal. I think we should just call it the rape gang scandal. Now, a court transcript from an Oxford grooming gang trial in 2013 has gone viral in recent days, owing to the horrific details that are so utterly debased, revealing the extent of the nature of the abuse that was handed out to girls as young as 12 and 13. So shocking are the details that the screenshots have millions of engagements online over the last few days, and even Elon Musk has weighed in, claiming that Reform and the Reform Party, is our only hope. I'm not going to share all of the details from that court transcript on this programme. They are simply too horrific. I have tweeted some of them, so if you're interested, you can go and see. But I'm joined now by the former Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, who, to give Suella Braverman credit, was one of the only frontline politicians in recent history to really call out this scandal. Suella, it's good to have you with us. Now, I'm going to ask you the question that many people have been asking online over the last few days, which is why on earth, given the horrors that we are reading about, have so few people faced justice for overlooking this scandal, for failing to engage with this scandal, for failing to chase down the perpetrators? Why have not more heads rolled as a result of this grooming gang scandal?
Good to be with you, Matt, and thank you for covering this scandal, one of the biggest national scandals in our country's history. And GB News deserves special mention for being brave and courageous, for shining a light on the injustice. Many broadcasters, much of the mainstream media are too scared to talk about it. And that's really the answer to your question, actually. There's too much fear. And as a result of that fear, from top to bottom, there has been cover-up and silence and deflection. And the few of us who have dared to speak out and speak truth about the scandal, expose the failings, have often been branded as far right or racist, and unfairly and totally unjustifiably so. But that, I'm afraid, it's that culture that has pervaded into the wholesale cover-up. We're beginning to get justice in terms of the actual perpetrators receiving sentences through the criminal justice system. Far too late, in my opinion, but we had a landmark ruling earlier this year where over 100 years worth of sentences were handed down by the judge. But you're right, there are too many officials, social workers, teachers, counsellors, police officers who turned a blind eye. You've asked why haven't they been held to account? The reason is that, as many of the reports have found, there has been a gap in the law. And so there's not been an ability to hold those people to account retrospectively. Yeah. I disagree with that. I think there is actually grounds for negligence, but that's why I've been calling for a new duty to report, so that there's actually a legal obligation on professionals to report cases and instances of child sexual abuse when they see it.
I'm going to come back to that point in a second, because I want to discuss how we can have a harder approach to the I say men, but, you know, the sick individuals who are involved in this. I just want to ask you one thing, though. Ipso, not long ago, said that your claim about grooming gangs being mainly comprised of British Pakistani men was misleading. Of course, we've got a lot of independent government reports and bits of evidence and so on, that I would argue would support that. But, I mean, would you say that again? Do you think that judgment by Ipso was itself a reflection of this problem?
I disagree with the judgment by Ipso. I think that we've had a decade's worth of reports, from the original Alexis J report into Rotherham, to the Louise Casey report, to the more recent Alexis J report in 2023 when I was Home Secretary. We've had independent reports into Oldham, sorry, not Oldham, actually Oldham I should come to next, but Telford, Rotherham, Rochdale, each of which concluded that the perpetrators were mainly and overwhelmingly from Pakistani Muslim heritage. So that's independent experts saying that. That's not me making it up. That's the fact.
Let's come to that Oldham point, because there have been councils out there, including Oldham and others, who have been trying to get, I think it's fair to say, a wider inquiry to take place. I think I'm right in saying Labour Minister Jess Phillips has said she doesn't want to go ahead with that. I mean, what's your view there on this issue about local versus national inquiries?
I think local inquiries have a key role to play. If you think back to the original Rotherham report by Alexis Jake, that was the big turning point. That was the first time a comprehensive independent report was carried out, which exposed authoritatively the extent of the failings. And when they're localised, we can see who did what, when, or failed to do what and when. When it's national, some of those local personalities and failings can get overlooked. So I think localised independent reports, such as the one that Oldham Council is requesting, is absolutely the right thing that the government should support. And it's an outrage, frankly, that Jess Phillips and this Home Office team have refused to do so. They've let down victims, and they're letting down the many failings, those who have been, whose lives have been destroyed by the grooming gang scandal.
One of the issues as well that I've often talked about is deporting some of the people involved in the grooming gangs who have dual nationality. I mean, we could use things like foreign aid and visa programs and so on to apply pressure to countries like Pakistan to basically take some of these, again, I say men, but take some of these criminals and abusers back and get them out of our country and keep the British people and our children safe and secure. Is that something you would support? I mean, how can we go further in this? How can we get tougher in making it clear we're not going to tolerate this behaviour?
Absolutely. We need to have a zero tolerance approach when it comes to deporting those foreign nationals who've been found guilty of these heinous crimes. One of the most unforgettable moments of my time as Home Secretary was when I visited Rotherham and Rochdale, and when I met with survivors of grooming gangs rapes. They were now young women in their 30s, but they told me of the horrendous experiences they had gone through. And some of them told me how that pain and hurt and destruction was exacerbated by the fact that their perpetrators were still in the country and at large, because the government, frankly, had failed to get them out of the United Kingdom. So this is adding insult to injury. And if we don't control our borders fundamentally in this way, then we again are part of the problem.
And it's also a problem I've seen in the universities. I remember not long ago speaking to academics at the University of Oxford talking about this scandal, and they denied that it was a serious scandal, at which point I had to point out to them that Oxford had a well-established grooming gang, and that actually they were sort of falling over themselves to deny that this was a scandal of national significance. But out there, in terms of the wider country, to people watching this show, I mean, the industrial scale rape and harassment of young white girls is something that many people out there just can't get their heads around. And there have been people online today saying, look, it's time to name and shame public officials, police officers, social workers, local politicians who failed to take action. Would you agree with that?
I would. There have been some apologies that have emerged from various officials within policing, West Yorkshire Police, South Yorkshire Police, Greater Manchester Police, over the years after various reports. But ultimately, no professional has been held to account directly or personally.
OK, Suella Braverman, well, I'm sorry to cut you off, but that's good to have your support for that. I think that's where this debate is going. Thank you, Suella Braverman, for joining us.